you from the accelerator in Wilkes-Barre. We had our first AMA just about a week ago, and it was so popular, and there were some questions that we didn't get to. So we're gonna give you one more hour today and ask the man himself some more questions.
Whatever you liked.
On people's minds. So, Rich Howells of NEPA Scene. I'm your host, John Casper, for the night. And we are coming to you from the new office. So very excited to be here.
And thank you for coming and do this again.
Yeah,
appreciate
man.
it.
Super pumped to be here. You know, I'm always there if you need me, for sure.
Thanks, man.
So with that being said, we're not going to take too much time because the focus is on the questions and you. So we're going to start off with the first question from Isle, right?
Okay.
How long was NEPA Scene around before you were able to quit working for others and run it full time?
So that's so the funny thing is I didn't get that luxury because I knew in the back of my mind that my time in papers was going to be limited, and I bought the domain name literally over 2 years before I started the site. I was still working in papers because I knew at some point that I'm going to get laid off or something's going to happen and I'm not going to have this job. So so I had the domain name, I had all the social media reserved for it, and was waiting to kind of do something with it. And so when I did get laid off, I took a couple of months and used that time to build up some content and get it ready, and make sure the launch was really good, and that when people went to the site, they would see something right away. So yeah, I unfortunately did not get the time. So then when it started, I was like, oh, well, I guess I'll maybe have to get a part-time job and then do this too. But then there was no time to, Dan, would you mind getting the Instagram going too? Because I'm just doing that from my phone. Thank you. I'll grab it. I'll grab it.
Yes. That is in a real life.
That is it.
Moment.
Absolutely.
NEPA Scene. What's the code?
Rather than there we go. All right. Well, I want to make sure the Instagram people could see it too. And for some reason, all these streaming things do not work with Instagram. Instagram is just difficult like that. So you guys watching on there are not going to hear the better audio and see like the much better. So by the way, let us know how we're doing with this, because the first time we did it last week was our first time doing it. So we had no feedback. We weren't sure. Yeah, exactly. It was exactly that. So yeah, you can see some definite better lighting and stuff this week.
Yeah, I think the setup's a little bit more put together.
Yeah.
Took some notes and we're back at it.
Well, that's funny, because that's kind of like NEPA Scene has been very DIY from the beginning,
right.
And we haven't been able to always have constant funding. So sometimes it was like I'd go a couple months without really seeing any real money.
Right.
And then other months it'd be really good, and I get a bunch of sponsors or advertisers, and the open mics certainly helped. Once I started getting paid for those, the first like 12 or 13 I did not get paid for, but eventually that turned into a paid gig as well. So yeah, it's been kind of all over the place in terms of funding and keeping it going.
Right. That's great. So how do you see NEPA Scene as a media outlet fostering a vibrant post-pandemic community? Right? I think things have changed a lot over the past 3 years, and I think right now we're really starting to see like back to open 2.0. Like, where do you see yourself and NEPA Scene as a whole within that sphere?
Well, I think now, and I'm hoping this is true, that I hope that people will not take this stuff for granted like they used to. Because once people were inside, like especially when we did our first live stream with some bands during the pandemic, we did it as safely as possible. Everybody was masked and socially distant, the whole 9 yards. And at that point, it was one of those where we only thought it was going to last a few months. So we weren't sure if that was going to be that was going to be it, or how many opportunities we're going to have to do this and that sort of stuff. And we had so many people watching right away, like thousands of people too. That was one of the biggest live streams we ever did, because it was right at the beginning of that whole thing. And so people, I think, right away were missing it, and that uncertainty of not knowing when we were going to reopen and when things were going to go back to normal, so to speak. And now I do already start to see some people taking it for granted and just being like, all right, well, back to the way things were, and that's it. But knowing that could change at any time, I would hope.
It's Cinco de Mayo. We went and got tacos for lunch, and I was with Nikki, and she looked at me and she said, "I can't believe there's still a pandemic." Like it was kind of like that surreal, just because you saw like not a concern, and it's tricky to think that like we could just slip right back to it,
Absolutely. And so I'm hoping that means more people will come out to shows, and that more people are eager to learn about what's going on in the community. They're looking for new events, new things. I see new stuff popping up all the time. There's like a new festival they're doing next weekend, which is really at the pavilion at Montage Mountain. It's Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be there for that. Not this coming Saturday, the following Saturday, the 14th. And that was essentially finding small businesses and musicians and stuff that were not doing well during COVID, that suffered through COVID, to try and stay alive. Now this festival, I guess, is focused on those people and gives them a chance to sell their wares without paying any sort of fees or anything like that, as you would sometimes have at these things. Yeah, exactly. So that's really cool. And so I hope people will come out to stuff like that and show that they appreciate these people, especially after they've been stuck inside for so long. And so many of those people, like, were doing great digital stuff too during that time, and keeping people entertained while they were stuck at home and that sort of thing. So maybe I'm hoping that those musicians, performers, artists in general learn something from that too, of how to make better social content, how to engage your audience in ways that are a little different. Maybe focus more on digital content, because that's obviously where my head has always been, as a digital publication. But I don't think a lot of people were thinking that. And then when it came down to, you can't be in person, no physical anything, that it was like, okay, now everybody's buying expensive cameras, everybody's live streaming. Yeah, exactly.
So what's been your most inspiring moment with NEPAC?
Inspiring. So one thing that really meant a lot to me was back in 2018. Yeah, the end of 2018, on Christmas, my parents' house burned to the ground, and it was horrible. It was tragic. My mom was injured, but so she was in the hospital for a couple months. Everybody else was okay, but they lost everything. And that was the house I grew up in. And we all had some stuff left there, of course, but it's just stuff. It was as long as everybody was okay. But we literally had to build from the ground up. And people really, a lot of the artists that I worked with over the years, and even some people that I hadn't ever really worked with before, raised a ton of money for us and helped us get back on our feet and all that kind of thing. I wasn't living there at the time. Obviously I moved out, got married, all that kind of stuff. But, my little brothers lost all their stuff. I know my sister lost a bunch. My parents lost everything. They didn't have even, like, they literally had the shirt they were wearing. That was pretty much it. So that meant a lot when people put like two benefits to get together. There was like an Indiegogo thing and GoFundMe or whatever, and raised a ton of money. People really just came out of the woodwork. People were showing up at my house at all hours of the night, dropping stuff off, clothes and donations and things like that. So that really meant a lot to me. And I kind of felt like, okay, there is community here, like that if you give enough, that you'll you'll get that back
I
tenfold.
completely believe in it. If there's a reason why supporting anything that's going on locally is so inspiring, is because there is just such a big community behind it, and I feel like the people that are involved and invested in it really kind of understand that. I think that's why it's important for some of the venues that you go to and you report on have those specific events that benefit and give back to the people that really fill the seats, so to speak, in the post-COVID world, because there's not a lot of options out there, and you're getting a very different experience depending on if you go to one place or a place that's a half a mile away. Like if you walk into the Bog, it's a very, very different situation than if you walk into Levels. And let's be honest, not everybody is going to want either or.
Right.
And it's very important to support those local places that are trying to go outside of the box and do those things.
Yeah. And a lot of the venues, local businesses helped me out as well, and donated all kinds of things. So yeah, that meant a lot to me.
That's great. Emily asks, what's your opinion of the band Isolation?
So they are two guys that have come to the open mic a bunch of times, and I really enjoy them. It's great stuff. Heavy metal, hard stuff, and I always enjoy when that stuff comes to the open mic, because a lot of it is acoustic performers and stuff, which is great too. Obviously, I want all genres there, all kinds of people represented, and all kinds of music represented. So it's just funny when it gets completely like the whole night just gets interrupted by a punk band or a metal band or something like that. But I welcome people like that to show up, and they bring their whole thing. They has like this huge cab that they bring that has all this background stuff that adds to it, because they're only two guys, but they sound like a whole band. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the spread of talent that actually comes to the open mics now. Somebody has seen it from so many different stages.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen so many of them, yeah.
But it's fun, and not everybody's going to get every act, and that's okay.
Right.
But it's cool to see new people and new acts still coming. Like there was that like Lonely Island style like that played on Tuesday. I was like, okay, guys, I get it. I appreciated it, if nothing else. Right?
Yeah,
it's really cool. Where should Scranton erect the Ed Kuza statue when he ultimately passes away from the Papa John's rectal syndrome? So that's a lot.
That is a lot. Wow, that's a whole lot to take in there. Yeah. So where should they erect the statue? Somewhere in Scranton. Well, the Jason Miller bust was so small that I feel like there's maybe some extra room on Courthouse Square for all of the other statues that could go there. I mean, maybe they could take down that eyesore of a Columbus statue that nobody asked for, that has absolutely nothing to do with Northeast PA at all. He has no connections to here whatsoever, and historically was not a person you want to erect a statue to. So maybe it could go there. I think that'd be good.
Replace Christopher Columbus 2023
with Ed Kuzo, and then like all the momentum that his band University Drive is building right now, it all becomes a big political storm. So I'm so sorry. You have to blame Brad, though. That's totally his fault. That's not my fault.
Brad, thanks. What would you consider the most unique thing the NEPA scene has or is compared to other communities? Also, top guilty pleasure movie.
Okay.
So first part, what would you consider the most unique thing the NEPA scene has or is compared to other communities?
Unique thing. Well, I what I really like is that, and you hear it a lot, but I do believe it's true. There's we've all kind of inherited that we're not in the mines anymore, but we've inherited that hard scrabble sort of working man's sort of attitude. And with that has come some like edge, some somebody's rough around the edges. They're not they don't maybe believe everything they hear. They're a little they're hard nosed. They work hard. They don't give up, that sort of thing. And I think that plays into the music that comes out of here.
Yeah.
You hear that in a lot of the lyrics and the styles that come out of here. So yeah, I'd say it has to do, somewhat with our roots and who we are as a people here, and certainly a different mix of. I mean, you have everything from Welsh to Italian to whatever. And then now you kind of have a new generations of, like Latinos coming in, African Americans coming in, and I think it's adding something to that mix. You're seeing like just in my little corner of things, like I'm seeing way more hip hop and stuff than I ever used to see.
Good hip hop.
Coming out of this, coming out of this area, which is really cool, and they have their own sort of style and things to talk about, and so it's all great, and I think that that melting pot sort of thing really is representative of Scranton, Wilkes-Barre sort of areas. So.
Yeah, and you see a lot of love like within those different spheres. Like on Tuesday, like when
absolutely
with everybody, I think as like a person along for the ride and like being in that experience of like going to an open mic, like I try to talk to everybody, and have a good time. I try to give a little guff to some of the comedians and whatnot, because that's like where my heart is, and I'm kind of like the cynical guy that doesn't do it much anymore.
Yeah,
but it's a lot of fun to go and be a part of, regardless of what part you're participating in.
Yeah.
I think that's also something that's very unique, because most places, there's very definitive like the types of things that happen there when there is an open mic experience. It's all like acoustic, or it's all stand up, or it's just off center. And I think for a much bigger, broad selection of different things that the area has to offer, and it's great to see those communities kind of tag team and get together and even give each other feedback. It's crazy.
Right. And even outside of the open mic stuff, I see a lot of mixed shows too. A lot of shows where every all these different genres are represented. It's not just a whole metal show or a whole punk show or whatever. It's a little bit of everything, and I think that's great too. And it shows that sort of community, and that people get it. Like just because we come from a different background or we have a different musical style doesn't mean that we can't get along and do a show together and bring those different crowds together, and you find an appreciation for stuff you maybe not have listened to otherwise.
Yeah, expand the horizons, because that's happened too as this has evolved. Like people who might not have liked that kind of stuff after they see the energy or the effort or something that goes behind it.
Yeah.
Next question. We talked about love a little bit last week. This is from Amanda. How did you meet your wife?
We met. We were both Blockbuster employees. She actually was coming into the Blockbuster that I worked at in Dunmore, and was talking to the other guys there and stuff. And then she eventually got a job out of that and was working out of the Scranton one. So we would call each other up and, be like, oh, what this, we have a customer here looking for this movie or that movie, long before the streaming days, and everything was physical copies. And we, would have running jokes and things like that. And after a while, and then, we ended up eventually going out, and it's funny because we both didn't realize we went to Marywood until after that.
Right.
So yeah, we both went to the same school as well, but Blockbuster is actually what brought us together, of all things.
I've been trying not to word bomb that you guys made it a Blockbuster night for real.
Oh.
I didn't back until I did it anyway.
I greatly appreciate that.
Carol wants to know your take on the Barry. So I'm guessing she's talking about like the Valley. Barre.
Okay. So it's so. Assuming you're talking about Wilkes-Barre, the city, because it was also like there was like a little show that somebody did called the Bear. Which is funny because nobody calls it that. Right. So I mean, which I thought it was pretty cool. Like it was neat that somebody thought to set that kind of thing here. It was like a crime drama sort of thing, and that was cool. And I haven't seen the whole thing. I don't know where it's available now. I don't know if it's all available on
If you're out there
YouTube or
and it's
whatever.
available, because I'd like to watch it. Like,
Yeah, I would
share
sit
it
down
out.
and watch the whole thing. I remember writing about it and reporting about it at the time that they were making it, but I've never seen the whole thing. I know like so many people that were in it, which I guess it'd be hard to maybe take my mind out of that. Like all these people I know acting in it, like that would be, it'd be hard for me to see them as the character, not the person I know maybe. But what I saw of it was cool. In terms of Wilkes-Barre in general, it definitely has a bad rap for sure. I mean, you go to any local news outlet and everything's man arrested, man shot, man whatever, and half the time it's in Wilkes-Barre. And so I think there's that sort of bad attitude about it. And I can't tell you a time that I've ever walked on public square where I haven't met at least one crazy person.
Right.
At no point. At no point. Every single time it just naturally happens. Although I seem to be a magnet sometimes for those. But I love the music scene up here. Carl Hall is great. The Kirby Center is great. There's more to come. I think the Keystone Ramp Works, I think they just opened recently in Wilkes-Barre too. So they're back. There's a lot of good to be found in Wilkes-Barre too, but I don't think that gets enough focus. So I hope that maybe NEPA scene is a remedy to that sometimes and shows people that there is some cool stuff here and some great people coming out of here and stuff too. I mean, it's always had an interesting art scene and music scene, but really doesn't get the coverage it deserves.
Right. I think if more people just kind of got the message too, that they could just go and do something, go and be a part of something, anything, if you're picking up the park or looking for those kind of like co-ed groups that like all meet up and do a thing like in the community, it's all out there and accessible. So if you really believe in an area, you can always change it or nudge it in the right direction in your own way, and you'll feel great about yourself doing it. I think Wilkes-Barre also for sure, gets the worst publicity of any city. None of the cities are any better than each other. In my opinion.
That's the thing. Yeah, a lot of the surrounding ones are about the same.
I love so many aspects of so many of the different places around here, and it's hard to sing the praises when there's so much like comes back that's way bigger than your voice sometimes.
Yeah, and you know what? I think too, Scranton kind of will overshadow Wilkes-Barre sometimes because it's always Scranton / Wilkes-Barre. Like in everything.
Right.
Whether it's naming a baseball team or just when people talk about it in general, it's always the Scranton / Wilkes-Barre region.
Right.
It's like, so it always comes kind of second to that. But in terms, they're both about the same. I've worked in Wilkes-Barre for many years. I've lived in Scranton for many more years. Yeah, it's about the same.
So we're gonna switch it up a little bit. What's in your comic book collection, and what other things do you collect from Josh?
Okay. So I'm pretty much all Marvel comics. That was what I got into. I started with the 90s X-Men cartoon when I was a kid. And that kind of got me started heavy into comics because I realized like, oh, there's more going on here. Like there's, I kind of grew up on He-Man and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and G.I. Joe and stuff like that. And while the comic versions of those all had kind of deeper things going on, a lot of the cartoons were very silly and dumbed down and whatever. It wasn't until like when those 90s shows started, like X-Men and Spider-Man, that was like, oh wow, yeah, there's way more and I caught on to it right away. Like there was, oh yeah, there's messages about tolerance and racism and hate and being different and trying to fit in and not being able to, and where do you go from there, and finding your own family and stuff like that. And so all that stuff really resonated with me right away. So I got into X-Men first, and that's probably the biggest collection that I have in terms of like comic books. And then Spider-Man, and then kind of all of Marvel in general, Avengers and all that kind of stuff. Captain America is one of my favorites. Punisher. Wolverine, that sort of thing. So those are kind of the bigger things, and then that kind of evolved. That absolutely evolved into action figures because I was always in action figures as a kid. So
They got
of course,
so much better when we became adults.
yes,
Kind of like to buy one once in a while. Yeah.
It's funny because like as a kid, it was like I enjoyed the figures, and I was more of kind of, I wasn't a bash them together kind of. I was like, I like to set them up and have these big displays and stuff like that. Yeah. So like, but they weren't always the best representation of those characters. They weren't really well made, and now it's like the figures that you can get are like, I mean, obviously there's $100, $200, $500 figures.
Yeah.
I don't get into those because I would never have the money for that sort of thing. But I think like Marvel Legends, which you can get for between 20, 25 bucks. The price is going up on them now because like plastics through the roof and everything like that with the economy and post pandemic and all that. But so I collect those. I do collect some Star Wars Black Series, not as much as I would like because I don't make a lot of money. So like Legends is good enough for me most of the time. And then like I've gotten into, they started doing Masters of the Universe Origins, which is like all the He-Man figures remade with modern articulation.
That's cool.
And they're cheap. They're only like $15 usually around. So like that's these days, I used to pay $5 for action figures. Now obviously there's more production costs and there's bigger tooling and stuff. And I'm twice as three times as old as I was then. So so prices have gone up on them and stuff, but those are cool. There's new GI Joe now too. There's GI Joe Classified, which same thing. They're all in the 6-inch scale and they're super detailed, and they're basically just remaking the stuff from when I was a kid, but like with better articulation, better details. Like that's the kind of stuff that I'm super into.
So when you talk about your collection as a whole, like if you had to like call out a prized possession or something you're really proud of, or maybe it's like not worth much of anything, it's just the thing you like to look at the most, like what would that be?
So like action figure wise, I love to like I have like a Wolverine shelf that's just dedicated to all different Wolverine figures. So you have like the really nice ones next to like the really like very 80s and 90s ones. And but in terms of like the prize possession, like the big thing, I have a original copy of Giant Size X-Men #1, which was when they reintroduced the X-Men for the first time and actually like made it way more interesting, because the original 5 X-Men were it was a cool book, but it didn't sell well when it came out. It actually was not a very big seller. It wasn't until they revamped it as the international team, where Professor X went around the world and like got Storm and Nightcrawler and Wolverine and Colossus and Banshee and all those characters, and brought them together into a new team to save the old team essentially. And so then you still had members left over from the original team, like Cyclops and stuff, but the other ones kind of left and did their own thing. And so Giant Size X-Men was a big one. It's worth it. It's worth quite a bit of money. It's pretty beat up, and I got like this amazing deal on it. So I don't know if anybody remembers this, and tell me if I'm crazy. There was a next to Cafe del Sol, which is long gone now. There was a comic shop there at some point. Like I don't know why, because I never, and I went in there one day because I wasn't like a big Cafe del Sol person. I know a lot of people who were. I only went in there a few times, but I remember wandering next door and I'm like, oh, there's comics in here, and I don't think it lasted very long, whatever it was in there. But I'm rooting through them and I'm like, no way, and it was like super cheap. Like way too cheap, even in those days.
Right.
Was like, why is this so inexpensive? I mean, I know it's beat up, but it's still like, cool. It's an original copy of this very expensive book. And I was like, okay, and I gave him the money, like thinking like, later, sucker, and ran out the door. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe that I own this now. So that's kind of been a prized possession to this day, and just that I got it locally is even cooler.
Pretty cool comic book collector story too. You got that like one cool issue that like
yeah,
changed over
and then
time.
that shop like kind of disappeared, so maybe I just made it, maybe it was all in my head.
the
and I was-
collateral on his loan. Something like that. So Carol asks, with all the amazing theaters in the Scranton area, how do you select the ones to promote? Have you heard of the Ritz Performing Arts Theater?
Yeah, I've been to the Ritz before, and we've covered a few things there. When Gilbert Godfrey was there, and when um, just recently they had a comedian come in, because they do comedy shows and stuff. We don't cover them a lot just because it's mostly young kids stuff there, and so it's really a lot of, in terms of deciding who to cover per se. A lot of it is based on like how much time that I have and how much I can squeeze into a week. So if you're talking about previews and things like that, if somebody like a venue sends me a press release, that helps me out a lot, because I don't always have time to sit down and interview everybody to do articles every single week. I try to get at least some interviews in every week, but sometimes you'll see and I mark them all accordingly. I always mark them from a press release right at the top, so that that it's a press release. But everything is edited, so I go through and edit it and make sure that maybe there's additional context that maybe wasn't in the original release, and add that in. And try to pick things that I think are relevant to the audience. Like most of our audience is over 21, people who go to concerts, people who go to bars, things like that. So typically we don't cover stuff with like little kids and things in it. I don't go and cover those things. But if they do send me a press release or something like that with all the details and things, like there's the Act Out Theater in Dunmore. They send these press releases that are essentially the article written for you and stuff. So that's great. And I post those right away so that they get out to that. Because there's people who are parents and things like that who want to go to those things. But it's not usually our target audience. So, I don't get to cover maybe as much things as I would like at the Ritz. But I would absolutely be open to it if they, sent me some press releases and things like that. I would happily run them or whatever. A lot of it just comes down to like time. Like I'd love to cover so much more, but I'm one guy. And I'm doing all that stuff behind the scenes.
You'd have to assume that, just like you said, with the press releases that ultimately come to you, that makes the job 10 times easier. Like,
because you're sending me the information, and then I can make sure that it gets out as soon as I can get it out. So that really does help a lot, especially because the other media has an advantage in the area, whether it's your TV media or your newspaper media. They have AP News, or they have like WNEP is owned by ABC, so they get affiliate news. So they get national stuff, stories from around the state, things like that. Associated Press, for those who are not, big on the newspapers, which I'm sure is a lot of people these days. That stuff that's taken from newspapers around the world. They do have some dedicated Associated Press reporters, but some stuff is like, if the Scranton Times reporter does a story and they find it relevant to the rest of the state or the rest of the country, then their story will get picked up and reprinted in other papers and things like that. So they have access to that stuff, which costs quite a bit of money to have a subscription to be able to use that content and then reprint it or, show it on TV or whatever. Obviously, I have nowhere near that kind of budget. So I unfortunately don't have access to any of that kind of stuff. So to me, things like press releases are kind of like, that's my version of that I'm able to, post stuff that's not necessarily my story, but that it gets the information out there that needs to get out there as soon as possible. So that does help me.
Okay. Next question is, what is your relationship with other media outlets? So I guess this is kind of like what you were talking about with different news stations and
okay,
and whatnot.
Yeah. So relationships are kind of it's interesting. I I couldn't tell you. It changes depending on who's there and how they view any PA scene. Because to me, it's always just been I'm just a guy with a blog. Like it's not a huge thing where we have a really good active social media following, and I think and our readership is great. We're in terms of arts and entertainment, we're definitely the number one source. We're definitely the most read out of those types of sources in the area. But there's the legacy media, and they are kind of not sure what to do with me. So like sometimes I'll talk to somebody there and they're like, oh, we love what you're doing, we'd love to work with you. And then other people, it's like, no, you're the competition, our big company needs to stomp you out, and it's like I'm just a guy, like I'm just one dude with a blog. Like I don't see how I'm a threat to anybody. And I feel like if you view me as a threat, then that says more about your publication and than it does say about me and how I feel or what I'm doing. Like that's always strange to me. But I've had for example, somebody call me up from one of the local papers. I won't say which, but I'm sure you could guess. And be like, hey, we would love to get your opinion on this story because it's arts and entertainment related. And I'd be like, okay, yeah, sure. And I'd, give them a quote, talk about whatever they wanted to talk about. And then the guy'd call me back like an hour later and be like, oh, I'm sorry about that, but I ran it by my editor and I can't use any of it. I'm like, well, why? And they're like, well, because you're competition. I'm like, why am I competition with your paper? Like your paper is a whole building full of people. I'm one fucking dude. Like I don't understand how that. But that's just and some of them are just very hardline traditionalists like that, and they just see it that way, that everything that does something even remotely similar to us is the bad guy and we got to get rid of them. But then other people, a lot of the local news stations, they're happy to talk to me because I think they see it as out of their role. Well, we're TV and he's a website, so it doesn't really they don't see it as the same thing at all. So every once in a while they'll ask me something and I'll get to be on TV for a couple minutes. So that's cool.
Yeah, for sure. Freddie wants to know how many pairs of jorts are currently in your wardrobe and how do you pull them off? How do you make pulling them off so easy?
I should not have had that. So
is that Freddie Fabry?
Yeah, of course it is. Of course.
Man, love that guy.
Of course it is.
Really happy to see him Tuesday.
So he's the only one who's ever, I've never thought of my shorts as jorts. I just saw them as I wear jeans all the time.
Denial's not a river in Egypt.
Yeah.
The party. You're a short supporter.
Yeah, I guess so. So I always just like, okay, if I'm gonna wear shorts, I'm gonna buy denim shorts. So yeah. So but he's only he calls out my jorts all the time.
Are you going to quantify it for him or not? Because
there's at least 5 or 6 pairs, I'd say.
5 or 6 jorts, different colors or like the same one?
Pretty much mostly the same. Like when I find a jeans that I like, I'll buy like 10 pairs of the exact same one. So like these jeans that I'm wearing now, I have like 6 or 7 other pairs that are just like. So yeah, pretty much the same thing. I used to have I never wore Jankos. I wasn't into that, but I did have like the big cargo ones for a while.
Don't even act like you worried about that.
Everybody had those at some point for sure. I had some cool ones that I used to wear that had like a spray painted like looking skull on the back and stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, these are badass. I like so fucking cool. Like so cool in this.
Sick, or leather or not leather, or silk shirts with the prints on them. I mean, maybe that was a big thing.
But I was, I'm in 2022 and I still have a goatee. So like, you should not take fashion advice from me whatsoever.
I let the hair and the shape of my face determine like what happened with it. Nothing else. Like
that's totally fair.
I think this is a really good question. This is Timothy. He said, "What do you think about the resurgence of vinyl and the issues local bands and smaller artists are having getting their records pressed?" I don't know much about getting a record pressed. I know that now in my own personal life, like going shopping for. I went earlier and got some vinyl. It was really cool.
Oh.
And like we were shopping off of, just the album cover in certain cases, because why is this record $50?
Yeah.
Brand new, and like how the hell have I not heard about who the band is? But it looks really sick, so now I want to listen to the music.
Right.
So that for a modern like vinyl experience, that's what it is for me. What do you think?
I think it's great that like vinyl has saved so many bands. Seriously, whether small local bands or like really a lot of the national acts, because nobody was buying music anymore. Everybody was streaming, downloading, and whatever. So these guys were getting nothing. And then all of a sudden, when vinyl really came back and everybody started pressing records again, it was like, okay, now I have to have. If I'm a fan of this band, I have to have the vinyl. So like they're making great money on those types of things. I think that's great. So that's how I'm looking at it from that perspective, because I'm personally not a vinyl guy. I do like physical media. I do still have CDs. I know CDs are now considered outdated. Maybe they'll see a resurgence at some point. I mean, God knows if cassettes were the worst fucking thing ever.
They were not good.
They were not good at all. I mean, well, okay, 8-tracks were the worst thing ever. Cassettes
Also
were
not good.
cassettes were very close. So if the fact that you can still sell cassettes today and get away with it, then I'm hoping that maybe CDs will make a comeback at some point. And but I'm not a vinyl guy. I wouldn't have the room. I mean, I collect enough crap. I don't need that on top of it. But I still have a huge CD collection from the past. But I haven't bought CDs in a while, unless it's like a favorite of mine, like Bad Religion or something like that, where I have all their other CDs, so I have to continue that collection. Yeah, absolutely. So I have to buy those, but otherwise, I'm not buying them personally. But I think it's great. And in terms of the other part was about them not being able to get them pressed these days.
Right. So about like the problems and then getting their music pressed is like a smaller.
Yeah, I read about there's like a vinyl shortage, and like they could press like millions of copies of Adele's album, but like you're if you were a small band trying to scrape by, essentially you're screwed. So like, yeah, I think these companies really in that case, like that was a big blunder on their part. I think these companies should have realized, like, yeah, we should reserve some of this. Like if supplies are getting low to make it, then yeah, reserve some for like everybody else and not just the big artists, because they're going to sell a whole bunch. But I don't know. I don't see a ton. I see more like vinyl is more of like the vinyl nerds. I can't imagine them owning tons of Adele stuff. I mean, maybe I'm wrong on that, but like that just, it seems like more of like you would want to press more punk rock albums and like bands with big cult followings and stuff, not necessarily like huge pop artists like her. So not that that's her fault at all, but
no, of course not. And she has a great voice.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it sounds great.
For wanting to hear that, like the different kind of media, it's interesting.
But yeah, like it's cool. Like Jack White is like has his own thing too, and
I look at a White Stripes album every single time I go to the record store. Like it's gonna be one of those things I'm just gonna do, like when I impulsively want it. I've been staring at it for two months now, probably, for sure. So I have a question that's kind of like a follow up to the last AMA, and it fits in really well with where we're at.
Yeah.
You said you like to. It's surprising that you're not like a vinyl person, so to speak, because you like to listen to albums front to back, like you mentioned last week. And I listened to Harvey Danger album front to back, just like to experience it that way as one thing.
Yeah.
To music for me is about the time frame that I heard it in, or like what it was making me feel at the time, right? And that's where I feel like there's a lot of value in playlists. And I think that if you created yourself some like digital playlists from time to time, you might be able to revisit them and like catch your vibes from the past.
Sure.
So I do that a lot. I'll like jump back in time and kind of like listen to the music I was listening to like 10 years ago or 5 years ago, and curate that for myself. What we asked about, like your top 10, if you had one song, right, that's like your favorite song, and when you listen to it, like what time frame in your life does it take you back to? Like what does it inspire? What are the feelings that you feel?
Yeah.
So I didn't want to do another top 10 and fill up a ton of space with great questions, but I did want to know after we talked about it.
Yeah, so I don't know if it'd be hard to pick like a song like Eulogy from Tool maybe is probably like one that sticks out as like one of my favorites. And that's kind of a long song that kind of takes you on a journey,
Yeah.
and like so that's something that kind of like I think would take me back to that sort of time and stuff. Like me and my cousin growing up were like we're really like best friends, and we shared a lot of the same sort of music and stuff, and would pass CDs back and forth. And like this was just in the days of like, oh wow, you can burn a CD now, like wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So like I'd burn him something, he'd burn me something, like that sort of thing. And that's how you were like trading music at that point. And even to this day, like I'll if I want a digital album, like I'll buy it and then have it stored somewhere so that like I still have a physical
I got you.
copy, so to
A
speak, or
non-fungible
whatever.
copy.
Yeah, exactly. I really don't trust Spotify or any of those. I don't really like streaming services, and I know that they do make like an infinitesimal amount of money for those artists, but I feel like my extra little listen every once in a while is probably not going to help that. But like when it comes to like the car, like I'll put it on a jump drive and stick it in the like CD player that I have there that has a little like slot for that, and then listen to them that way. So like I will download like a couple of months ago, I kind of did something similar where I just went back in my CD collection and was like, I haven't heard any of these albums in like probably 10, 15 years at this point. And I put them all on that little drive and then just put them in there. And now that I'm going back like, regularly from Scranton to Wilkes-Barre and stuff and
It's a great
driving.
like, time frame, like you can frame for yourself and like have a thing for yourself. I do that with work.
Yeah,
it's, people are like, you commute 45 minutes. I'm like, it's me time, it's music time, it's podcast time, it's book on tape time. Like, and I'm making something out of it, so it's totally relatable.
And so many of those albums too, I can tell you for a fact, are not on any streaming service right now.
For sure.
So if I didn't have them somewhere, they just wouldn't exist, and that's a crying shame. So like I don't trust these streaming services, because as soon as one just dies off one day, gets bought out or whatever, or an artist decides to pull all their stuff, like then all that stuff's gone and you don't have a copy of it. So I feel like physical copies of any, whether it's a digital that you could put on a drive or a CD or a vinyl, you need it. You absolutely need to have them.
I worked at Blockbuster as well, and that those collections like amass so much, so it's hard for me to like want to collect things and curate them and take care of them.
Right.
But holy moly, when you say like I'm not a fan of streaming services, I'm like, okay, boomer, and I like check out almost immediately.
Right.
Because they're so accessible and it's so nice.
Sure.
But true to form, I was like, a couple months ago, like, what's the best New Year's movie? In my opinion, it's 200 Cigarettes. You can't stream at all 200 cigarettes. It's like one of those situations. Like, having the physical copy is always going to be king, because you could always find a way to view it, for sure. And that's where records resonate for me. But totally, man, like it's such a funny thing to talk about.
Yep.
The next question is a really good one, because I kind of got to be in the passenger seat for some things. So Robin wants to know, what was your school experience like?
Oh, okay. So my grade school was a nightmare. I really didn't have actual friends in grade school at all whatsoever. And it was Catholic school. So, here they are teaching you these about this great guy who said everybody should be getting along and everything, and you should treat others how you want to be treated, and going out of his way to help people out and all that kind of stuff. And then you have kids raising their hand, yeah, Jesus said this and Jesus said that, and then as soon as the teacher turned their back, you fucking loser, you asshole, you whatever, like every name in the book. And it was like I was everything that I was into, nobody else was into. I was like a total dork, and everybody else was like sports or basketball or whatever else, and I just never really fit in. And I tried to maybe make people laugh and things like that, and I thought maybe that was the way to get people to like me and stuff, and I don't think it ever really really worked. And so yeah, that whole from like preschool to 8th grade was just a nightmare. But it solidified, like I never really was. I liked the things that the Jesus guy had to say, but I didn't like the Christians. It's the
Right.
whole like the the Gandhi quote. I like your Christ, but not your Christians.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. So I was never religious, and I could never get into that sort of thing. So I very quickly, especially after they make you go to like church and masses and all kinds of stuff, during school and whatever. And it was like, I don't feel like there's anything. So like, very quickly became an atheist, or realized I was an atheist. Like I was the whole time. I really, this stuff was, I could see was full of holes, and I didn't really understand it. I could not get into organized religion at all whatsoever. I see what they were trying to do, but people are too flawed to actually make like a system like that work. So, to this day, I don't really believe in that sort of stuff, but that makes me more kind of, believe in people, and, hope that they'll do the right thing and stuff like that, which obviously they don't always do, but I think it's better than trying to force yourself to believe in something that you just don't, and so like by the time I got to high school, I kind of like was like, I was determined to, I had the option to go to like Bishop Hannon or something like that. And I was like, never again, never again. I will never, ever go and deal with that shit again. So I went to West Scranton, which I really liked a lot, which was funny because like you still had your bullies, and you still had your jocks and stuff,
I think our bullies
Jorts
were
and stuff.
such a different thing than they are today.
Oh, it was a whole different world. I mean, there wasn't the digital bullying that there is today, and that could follow you everywhere, sort of thing. But like and we were able to wear our own clothes, which was great too. Like now they put everybody in uniforms, like they do in Catholic school, and try to strip you of every bit of your individuality, which I'm so against that. So we were able to kind of be our own at the time. So I was like, oh, cool. Now I can finally be who I am. And I met, at least a small group of people that were into the same stuff that I was. And then I kind of forced myself to do theater because it was like, this is the only elective probably that I have a remote interest in. And that gave me the ability to be able to do what I'm doing right now, and like talk in front of people, and later to be able to interview people. I would never have those skills otherwise if I didn't do theater. And we did musicals and all kinds of stuff. And if you can imagine, dancing and singing, all that kind of shit. But I was Henry Higgins and My Fair Lady, so that was fun. But yeah, that really meeting those theater people and hanging out with them, and just meeting people in general who were just different, march the beat of their own drum, like that really helped a lot. So my high school experience was actually pretty good.
So what would you do or add differently if money was a non-issue? And what other city or areas would you be interested in doing a similar thing in? So if you took any PAC to like further down the road to like Lehigh Valley or something.
Okay. Well, if money was not an issue, then obviously I would have a whole team of reporters. Like it's not about like, I love to write. So I would love to be able to take more time to like do an interview, and then specifically sit down and write it all out, and kind of play with the story and make it the way that I want to make it. And write like those good hard magazine stories where like you're going through page after page, and there's like this these great photo spreads, and this super detailed interview that's broken up into different parts and stuff like that. Like I would love to be able to spend the time to do that, because I'd have other people doing all of the everyday stuff that keeps me busy too. So like I would probably do that sort of thing. I mean, we talked a little bit last time about like print and that sort of. I don't know if I would get into I would love to do maybe a quarterly something, like a little print magazine or something like that we could.
A feature.
Yeah, exactly. Like, maybe do a little, a more interesting treatment of some of the content that maybe deserves a little bit more than just like you scrolling through your phone for 5 minutes. Like, that it sucks when you spend a lot of time on a story and then people are like, too long, didn't read, or, they just kind of skim it, or they just skip it all together because they're like, oh, this is more than 2 paragraphs. I'm never going to read this. Like, but there's people out there who want to sit down and they want to read that kind of stuff. So I would love to, if I had that kind of money, I would do that. And obviously would invest in a ton of more digital stuff. Like with our partnership with Special Guest, it's great because we have access to this type of stuff that I never would have had otherwise. So obviously if I had the money, then this is the kind of stuff that I would do. I would have, tons of super expensive cameras and a crew and the whole 9 yards to handle all that kind of thing. So I'm thankful that Special Guest allows us to do some of that stuff that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise.
Again, because it's really nice to have the space.
Yeah,
for sure, and the support. I mean, we have 2 other guys. Shout out to the behind the scenes peeps back there, John Fry, and what's
Dan Kimbo.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for keeping us looking good. And
yeah.
Along with the show. We have a couple more minutes left, so I'm going to ask you a few more questions.
All right, let's get through them. Hopefully we can. Yeah,
there's still a few. Katie wants to know: are you still able to marry people?
No, I'm married. No. Yeah. Actually, yeah. So no, I did the whole like online or ordained thing. So I did do a wedding. Unfortunately, it didn't last. But yeah, if somebody else wanted me to be there, maybe I could break that. I felt like got off on the wrong foot with one. So maybe the next one they'll be together forever. So we'll see. Yeah, but yeah, I would do it.
Seamus wants to know: would you rather fight 1 elephant-sized Landy or 100 Landy-sized elephants?
For reference, Landy's a short dude. So an elephant-sized Landy or like lots of
1 elephant-sized Landy or 100 Landy-sized elephants?
I mean, I love Landy, but I think I'd only be able to handle 1 Landy. I don't know if I'd be able to handle so
like
many Landys.
State, he's very unpredictable and spry.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, check out his YouTube channel. You'll see.
The one shout out I'm gonna allow for another outlet is Landy's YouTube channel, and I won't be rude about it. I'm just kidding. I love Landy. Mike wants to know: how do you feel about the new Punisher logo? And where they are going with the designs of the Punisher.
Okay, so yeah, the Punisher thing is interesting because every time the problem is there's your comic readers who follow this stuff, and then there's your non-comic readers who maybe are just kind of casual fans. They maybe watch the movie, TV show, or something like that. So like when they put out a headline like they're changing the Punisher skull and it looks terrible and everybody freaks the fuck out. It's like every time. Yes, please stop, because it's a storyline. They're going to get through it. And in 6 months, it's going to go right back to the way it was. Cause that's how comics are. They always reset to the default. There's very few times that changes stick to any character. Like Spider-Man has had so many different costumes over the years, but he always goes back to the red, blue, and
super recognizable.
Like exactly, like he's always going to go back to that eventually. So like when people were freaking out, like, oh, they're changing the Punisher, it's part of a story. He's takes over the I haven't read much of it, but from what I understand, he takes over the Hand, which is very similar to they did a Daredevil story a few years ago where he joined the Hand after fighting them all these years. They're these evil ninjas. He becomes the leader of them. So like same type of thing. Like so the Punisher is fights all these guys, and now he's part of them. Why is he doing that? So like I'm sure there's some kind of good explanation as to why, and then eventually he'll go back to the classic skull again. And the skull is funny because it's been like used and misused so many times now. Like now it's become like a military thing and a police thing and a hillbilly with a truck thing and stuff. And it's like, I don't know if any of these people have ever read a Punisher comic book, but he would not be about any of that stuff.
Right.
I mean, he
Well,
was
keep
a
up your ass.
yeah, he was an ex-military guy, but he's not a fan of like you know he obviously he's a vigilante, so he's not a fan of the police.
Right.
So yeah, the people that have like you know put a blue stripe through them and stuff like that, like you do not like that character. Then you don't understand it whatsoever.
Right.
So and now it's weird because now like Disney owns the Punisher, so that's even stranger. I don't think they know what to do with them right now.
Yeah. Kind of like what they're gonna do with Deadpool. Like where do you go next?
Yeah, exactly. Like him being such an R-rated character, and then like up until now, yeah, we can sell T-shirts and everything else with all
Right.
these characters because we could keep it at PG-13. You can't, you know, if you the essence of Deadpool is not PG-13, much in the same way that the Punisher is not
Right.
very PG-13. And like the TV show that they put out a couple of years ago was good, but I think it missed some of the.
They missed the mark instead of the movies.
Yeah, none of the movies have nailed it yet.
Nice to see. Glad to see it.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm a big Punisher fan, and I could go on and on about that. So I'll stop there. But
I laughed so hard after the last question because I didn't see this one in there. But this
Okay.
is from Matthew, and I have texted Bobby about this, just quoting this question. So I'm very glad that somebody vetted it and made it through.
okay.
Matthew wants to know who gave you your bald head, wife, kids, or in-laws? Who gave you your bald head?
It's funny. Like I don't mind like being bullied as a kid. It would have really bothered me if I was like a
Right.
Charlie Brown sort of guy and like you know lost my hair early or whatever. But I didn't lose. I wasn't really started losing it until like college, and it doesn't bother me at all because I never liked my hair. I always hated it. I never knew what to do with it. I usually just put like a ton of gel in it, which was terrible. I had terrible acne that I dealt with for many years. Still kind of there, but not the way that it, you know it was when I was a teenager. So the oil in the hair would just make that 10 times worse. So like I never knew what to do with it, and I had a mohawk for a little while,
Yeah.
and then when I got the job at Go Lackawanna when I first started doing newspapers, I was like, well, I can't walk in here day one with a fucking mohawk. Like the editor's gonna look at me like, what? Who did I just hire? Why did I, you know? So I shaved it that day, and from then on, I've just always shaved my head. And thankfully, I have one of those heads that looks okay shaved. Like you know, if you
Yeah.
have one of those kind of weird heads that you know you don't that doesn't work for the whole bald thing, then like I feel sorry for you if you bald later in life. Yeah, exactly. But thankfully it worked out for me. One thing I have going for me, I guess the cue ball looks all right.
Yes,
So, and you know what? It's no maintenance at all. I love being able to just kind of wake up and go, or like get in the shower and it's like boop, done. You know,
Yeah.
don't have to spend money on shampoo. It's great.
So Jay wants you to talk about your biggest passion in life, your biggest dreams, and not just for your work, but your family, for your family, the world,
Oh wow, that's
full
a
life,
that's a
etc.
deep one.
Yeah, it's heavy.
So reflect on
Your biggest passions in life, your
Okay.
biggest dreams, and again, not just with work, but family outside of work, or your personal life.
so definitely you know my passions obviously are you know with the local you know arts and entertainment you know music scene and stuff in general. So like that is kind of my you know big one there. And then my kind of escape from like when you know like I cannot work anymore, I cannot think about this anymore or whatever is like the comic book thing and Star Wars and all that kind of stuff, the sci-fi fantasy kind of stuff. So that stuff I really enjoy. And obviously you know spending time with my wife, like I don't have it sucks because like a lot of the core group of friends that I really hung out with a lot, whether you know it's like I still keep in touch with a lot of those people, high school, college people, but we don't get together a lot. I don't get to see them a lot. It's kind of one of those like once every so many months. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, somebody's in from wherever they're living now and stuff. They moved or whatever. And okay, we can get together and have dinner and stuff like that. And it's great. It's just like old times and then that's it. So like I don't have that like core group of friends that I can hang out with all the time. So like I do kind of miss that part of it. I wish I still had like, you know, that, oh yeah, let's all go out on Friday, Saturday, like that sort of thing. But I do enjoy I do enjoy the being able to cover this kind of stuff and essentially going, making entertainment part of my everyday workflow. Like not many people get to do that. Some people just have to sit in front of a computer all day, which is a good part of my job. But then I also get to like go to shows and stuff too. And, I can't tell you the last the last time I've paid a ticket to see anything because
Right.
I'm usually covering it. It's part of it, but there's an enjoyment level to that too. So
Right.
I really like that part of it. So I don't know if that answers the question,
I
but
think so.
that's kind of and in terms of like down the road, I don't know, maybe this thing is so based in Northeast PA and is such a local thing. It's hard to think about anything outside of that. But we've thought about moving out of the area at some point. So maybe down the road. I don't know if I would do this anywhere else
Right.
because it has a special thing because I grew up here, so I know it really well. I'd have to like know a whole new area, so I couldn't
Right.
really just take this somewhere else. And I guess that kind of makes it special.
Yeah, for sure. You can't pull any PA scene out of any PA, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
what it is. But in a way where one of the earlier questions about being involved in communities and like what's your biggest edge, like you're kind of like the scene watcher, like to call back to Marvel, right? Like you've seen
And my baldness.
right? and your staunch opinions on certain things.
Yeah.
We know you get down with the politics.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, we're not. I don't think there's any political questions. Thankfully.
No political questions.
Thankfully.
I can't, with the way the world is right now, I just can't. I can't bear.
God, I
to
know.
do it.
Right.
This next question is one I know we missed last time because it's one I meant to ask, and by the time I got back to it,
oh yeah,
we never got back to it. So
yeah.
This is from a good friend of mine, Jess. What was the first large concert and the first smaller local show you covered, either under any PA scene or in previous publications? First big show you covered first small show.
I don't know. In terms of big show, it was probably something at Montage, I would think. I don't know the exact first one. See, the problem is if you sat me down and maybe really think about it, I could tell you, I've seen all these bands and I could check them off a list and stuff. But I could never tell you what years they were. I'm really bad with that.
If you had a dated playlist, you could.
Yeah, exactly. And that maybe is one of the advantages of that sort of thing. But yeah, I'm really bad at the years and like when things were. I do remember like one time I hadn't really reviewed concerts. Like obviously I've been to a lot of concerts, but I hadn't reviewed them. And Mike Lello, who does Highway 81 Revisited, was at the Weekender at the time. And he took me to, he said, come up to this show at Montage. And it was John Mayer. And not my thing. And I'm like, I don't know. But he kind of taught me, like, he was like, I want to show you how to, like, write a review of a show and, like, what you should be looking out for. And, like, so that was a cool experience because it was an artist I really wasn't familiar with. I hadn't really listened to before and gained a new appreciation for, and was able to like take notes. And so I challenge people to do that sometimes. Like if you have the opportunity, like go out of your comfort zone and check something like that, especially if you want to get into this kind of thing. So that was cool. In terms of local shows, I think the first couple local shows that I covered in any sort of official capacity were like bands that are actually still around. Fire with Friends, one of my favorite local bands of all time, and I will absolutely argue one of the best local bands of all time. And Family Animals, also one of the best local bands, and they're still around kicking too. And obviously with COVID and stuff, it's been a while since I think these guys have played out. But I hope they both of those respective bands get back out there and create more music and stuff like that. I think Fire with Friends was recording new stuff last I checked.
Last I knew that was a thing.
Yeah. And Family Animals always seem to be like doing something
in the process.
Whatever
it is, they're working through something.
Absolutely. So like, and those are like early like vintage theater days. Rest in peace. So like those types of like little little venues like that. When I first got into the music scene, like I mentioned Felix Sarko last week and stuff, and how I got into them because they were so different and they stood out from everything. So like there was them and like Alien Red and Raining Toads and all those guys. And I did do an interview once with Felix Sarko, but that was before I really got into the whole journalism thing.
Right.
It was just kind of like I did it for like the school paper or whatever. But and I think they didn't even print half of it. They like edited it down and like cut it up and that sort of thing. But I didn't cover them in that sense. But that's kind of what got me into that sort of that scene, so to speak.
So we're rounding out the last like 6 or 7.
Yeah.
So we'll finish.
Well, let's go to the rapid fire.
Right?
All right.
So yeah, rapid fire it up. Would you consider an NEPA scene in the park event? Feature some local bands, food trucks, etc.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Why would you not?
Why would I not? Yep. I would love to do any kind of music festival sort of thing. I would love to maybe host or curate some kind of NEPA scene music fest.
I think we could. All right.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, Rick. What was your favorite interview or story, and what was the background on it? Who was the coolest artist or band you've had the chance to hang out with for a story?
So a lot of the like in terms of national artists, I assume is referring to, most of them were like phone interviews. So a lot of the cool people that I got to like talk to was all over the phone. So like we were hanging out, but not really hanging out. It wasn't an in-person sort of thing. Those were all cool, and they were great experiences. The only ones that I got to like actually like hang out and like talk to, there's a really great Canadian bands. They're a Canadian goth band called Birthday Massacre, and I got to go to Philly and hang out with them and do like a backstage interview and stuff, and that was a lot of fun. And their fans are like super dedicated, and I got tons of compliments on that interview because I did a ton of research in advance. So that was fun. Like they enjoyed the questions, the fans really enjoyed the interview itself and stuff. So like that was a great experience. And like I used to do Warped Tour every year, and all the little like metal festivals. It was like Uproar and Ozfest and all those types of things. So I covered a few of those, and those I got to actually like hang out with these guys and like meet them and stuff. And it was more of a kind of like this, like, okay, we sit you down. I've never met you before. We're going to talk for like 5 or 10 minutes or whatever. And then some press person's going to come in and grab them and bring them to the next thing and whatever. So it was kind of this conveyor belt sort of thing. And so sometimes you really connected with somebody and it was like a great conversation. Other times it was kind of like, all right, let's get,
5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm going to do my 5 minutes and get out of here and get back to, drinking or trying to sleep with underage girls with Warped Tour, that sort of shit.
To explode a dressing room.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever crazy shit that they were up to behind the scenes. I didn't get into that kind of stuff. I was more focused on the music end of it. But yeah, so I got to meet some really cool artists that way, and like ones that maybe I wasn't really listening to before, but I'm like, okay, that guy was cool. I'm gonna listen to his band now because like yeah. So those were really fun. I wish I got to do more of those before they went away, but
This is another good question. Because I think you're kind of open about some of the downsides sometimes, right? What are some of the downsides of doing this job? I know there's the people that you represent. You had mentioned it today that there's somebody you had to go to court for, and really difficult to deal with. So like I'd imagine that's probably like first and foremost like, the bleed into your personal life and the bullshit that you have to deal with. On the back end of certain things when you're dealing with a broad area of crazy people, as we know.
Well, yeah, and that's with anything, but like, well, obviously with creative people, you have some people who are just batshit insane, and maybe that's what makes them creative. And then there's other people who are just they can separate the two. They can do their 9-to-5 job and then they can get out and whatever. And some people it all blends together for them. So yeah, there's sometimes like I've had people make death threats against me for no real good reason that is justifiable in any court of laws. We soon learned that I had to like report to the police and stuff because I'm afraid that this guy's gonna do something. And I've had people too that like there's a constant, a lot of these people love drama too. any scene is full of that. But like, you have all these kind of creative people in a room, and they all kind of have their own ideas of, who's good and who's bad. And, so you have a lot of people who want to like use like they want to take over my platform for their own agenda, so to speak. So if they have some kind of problem with somebody, it's like, well, if I tag any PA scene in this and I post on their wall 1,000 times or whatever, then they have to focus on this. And it's like, I'm sorry, but I'm never going to do a story about how like your ex-boyfriend sucks and he's in a band now and he's an asshole. Like that's not what I'm doing.
Dish on it,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm not a gossip rag. That's not what I do. And it's not the place to like, some people will make these accusations against people, and it's like, and I'm very sensitive to that sort of stuff. Like, recently at the open mic, we had somebody who got into a domestic disturbance, a domestic fight with somebody, and was arrested and put in jail for it. And, after talking with the venue, we banned him from the venue, and he cannot come back, and he cannot perform, and he cannot, come to the open mics again and stuff. Because we wanted his girlfriend to feel safe and that she can come here anytime and enjoy music or whatever, not have to worry about her boyfriend walking through the door or having to deal with that kind of stuff. Like, that's terrible. And I think that's the right way to handle these things. Other people want to be like, I heard a rumor about this guy that I think he did something bad. So I want you to write an article about that. And if you don't, I'm going to try and publicly shame you. I'm going to try and put it all over social media. And it's like, this, first of all, is not the way to handle that sort of situation. And second of all, it's like, what would made you think that I would want to like involve myself in something that's not proven, that has no, record of any kind or whatever? Like, that stuff's crazy. Like,
very crazy. And I've tapped people on the shoulder and said like, hey, like, it's not the right place to get the message across.
Sure.
If you want to, like, there's definitely a time and place to do it. So like,
there is that. Yeah.
Be tact about what you want to accomplish, but don't take some, venues show that they're trying to put on to make them money, and the people that are there and make a ton of accusations against somebody, and then, in spirit hurt everybody else involved.
Right.
Aside from this thing that, you would never report on unless it was proven true.
I would never want to promote a predator in any way, or somebody who has done terrible things.
That's a lot of the issues, right?
Like,
somebody has a perception that somebody else did something wrong, but innocent until proven guilty. And
absolutely. And
especially when you have an area that depends on like their events and their venues. And I'm not saying that to ever support.
Yeah. And whether people see me as a real publication or not is a whole other ball game. I could still be sued for libel though. So like, if you think I'm like, so
which is more time and money that you don't have to invest in those things.
Yeah, exactly. So what, that's not, when I would love to be able to be a protector, so to speak. And I want to focus on like the people who I think deserve the spotlight, who are doing something positive. I feel like that's other media. There's so much other media out there where the focus is the negativity. It's this person did this, and this person has been, brought up on these charges and whatever. And they get that, they get their traffic out of that sort of stuff. Some for good, some for not. That's not what that's not what I do. I want to focus on the people who are doing good things and positive things.
Right.
And if I think somebody is a bad person and they've done bad things, they're just never going to get coverage from me. And that's just the way it is. I'm never going to.
Because it would give them more credibility to do it, right?
Exactly. So I'm just going to ignore those people who want to bring that negative energy in, and focus on the positive people, the good people who are trying to do something good, trying to put out something that means something to them, and focus on those people. I think being a positive force is what is going to set us apart. And I think that's where I could do the most good, for sure.
I agree. Sam wants to know, where do you buy your Marvel and Star Wars tees from?
So like, not to give away all my, fashion secrets, of course, but I am a cheapskate, because I don't make a lot of money. So I will buy, it used to be in the old days, I would shop at Comics on the Green, which is still around, thankfully.
Yes.
because that was the only place that you could buy a comic book T-shirt, or like a, the Scranton Comic Con, which is also still around. Sometimes there would be a vendor who had some T-shirts and stuff and would buy them, and they were like the mail order ones that you could get in the 90s in the back of a comic and stuff. Like that was my wardrobe. Nowadays, it's like, now that superheroes are so popular and we have this whole renaissance with the movies and that sort of thing, it's very easy to find this stuff. So I will wait till things are really on sale, or like get them, Walmart and Target have tons of good stuff that it's cheap.
Penny.
That's actually where
JCPenney.
JCPenney is where this very shirt came from. I actually just bought like a bunch of shirts from them the other day, and they were all $8 a piece. $8 for.
I got a sweet
shirt.
Chewbacca party animal tee and a sweet Mandalorian tee. Like, we've been shopping for Disney.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm super excited to wear that.
That's great. See, that you could find deals if you look for them hard enough. I'm not a guy who pays like these people who pay like $20, $30, $40 for a T-shirt. Like, never in my life. Nope, no way.
Don't have the money for it.
Yep.
Sarah wants to know, any tips for someone who wants to get into journalism?
Don't.
All right. So, as the wise monk, what would be if you want to take the path to pain? What's the best shot they got?
So weirdly, the way that I got my first newspaper gig, other than freelancing, well, first of all, you should start by freelancing. Try and
do the thing.
Yeah, do the things that whatever. But also, one of the things that I think sold the editor that interviewed me was that I was a blogger too. And at the time, and maybe it's not as impressive these days, but at the time, she thought that was impressive because it was like, you did this on your own. You go out and you blog about what you want to blog about. And it was a political blog. So I don't know how, hopefully she agreed with some of my opinions when she saw it or whatever. If she looked it up, I don't know if she did or not, or just saw a blogger and that was enough. But like, show initiative by like doing your own thing as well. Like, have a good portfolio of stuff. And then, don't you try a little bit of everything, because when I wanted to be a creative writer when I got into writing, and I thought that was the career path. And then I'm like, how do you become a creative if you're not a Stephen King, if you're not a guy who can just bang out novels, like how do I do that? So I did the journalism thing for money. Essentially, it was like, oh well, I get paid to do this, and I can, at least I'm exercising that part of my brain and whatever. And then that made me get into it. That made me like, oh yeah, okay, I actually do like this. And there's a creative aspect to it, in the sense that like, it's kind of fun to tell people's real stories as opposed to trying to make up a story. Yeah. Like, it's so much more interesting to hear people's real stories and then be able to tell those. So I kind of saw that as a privilege, and then that kind of built from there. So like, I guess find what you love, what you're interested in writing about, and see if you can find local platforms first, and then maybe use that to launch something bigger, and use those to your advantage. Like, when I was at the Weekender, I knew that my time was limited there because there was a lot of changeover, above me and around me. There was, I knew that print is not going to last forever and whatever. So every single week I used it to my advantage. I'm like, how many stories can I fit in this week? And I like busted my ass for those like 2.5 years that I was there, especially with the national stories, like the artists that I was like, any band that I can think of, whether I'm interested in them or not. Cause like, I fucking hate Ted Nugent. Yeah. Fucking hate Ted Nugent. Yeah. But I put in a request and I talked to him in the same way that I talked to like Air Supply. Like, grandma listens to fucking Air Supply, right. But like, I'm going to put in for that. But I also going to put in for like the stuff I really like, the metal and punk and all that kind of stuff too. And I got to do all those stories too. And most of these guys were just eager for press because, but you just have to have the outlet. You can't just, be like, hey, I'm a fan, and like, I'll start a free website if it'll get me like an interview with you, like that sort of thing. You have to have some legitimacy. So like, find those like little publications, little websites like mine, or if you want to work for one of the local newspapers that's still hanging on or whatever, and try to do those stories. Because a lot of times the guys who've been working there 20, 30 years, they don't care about that shit anymore. Or they've done it to death, and they're happy to give it to you and give you that opportunity. So like, use that to your advantage and get as many of those in as you can in. So like I got a lot of I scratched that itch a long time ago.
So the last question that we have is about the new office here in the accelerator. What are your plans? What do you see this as? Obviously from the growth stages, we did a podcast last week. We made some improvements this week.
Yeah.
Like what does the future hold for life here in Wilkes-Barre?
So if you could see right now, there's only one picture hanging up right now. We did hang up a bunch of other ones, and they all fell down because these walls are weird. And this used to be a National Guard building, so like it was. So yeah, we're still working out the kinks, but I'm hoping eventually like put up a ton of our great photography from our local photographers that we have. Jason Reed-Miller and Scott Kucharski and Amanda Harishna and all, a lot of the people that we've worked with over the years and stuff too, and kind of make it a tribute to them and their photography because I think it's very eye-catching. But I also want to do I want to do photo shoots in here. We have a great green screen in the back. We should use that to our advantage. And obviously we'll be doing the podcast here every week. So within the next couple of weeks, you'll see a big couch here, and we're going to be interviewing artists week after week and doing these kinds of streams. So you're going to see a lot more of that stuff pick up again now that we've finally passed not that COVID's gone, but that we've passed that point where we have to, mask up and all that kind of stuff like we used to. Now we can do that kind of stuff again. So I'm excited to do that. And one thing that I thought of, and this actually goes back to what we were talking about before about physical media, I really want to start a physical media archive of local music because as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, if maybe one of the libraries or something has done that or whatever.
It's like we have a library somewhere.
There's nobody doing that. Like when I went into when I was at the Weekender, for example, the last editor had these drawers full of CDs from local bands. And there were drawers and drawers, and they went back years and years and years. So I grabbed them all and took them with me because when they cleared it, they downsized our place and then they made us move into another office and they took away this cool space that we had. And I guarantee you that all of those would have went in the garbage. They would have went in the dumpster because nobody saw the value in that stuff.
Yeah.
And, digital was becoming more and more of a thing too. It wasn't quite at the point where we're at the big streaming services like we are now, but it was it was getting to that point where, CDs, our sales aren't what they used to be or whatever. So I'm glad that I saved those. I have a whole bunch of some of them I've never heard of. Other ones, it was oh my God, this person who's now in their, 40s or 50s, this was when they were in their 20s.
So cool.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of really cool ones. And then my own personal collection. So I'll use that to kind of start it. But I also want to I know there's tons of artists out there. And don't be embarrassed by this, that you have 200 CDs that you never sold that are sitting in an attic somewhere or a basement or something like that. Give them to me. I'll take them. Maybe not all of them. Maybe you should still keep some of them for yourself, but give me some of those wrapped or unwrapped, used or not used, whatever. I want them because I would love to start a little archive of those things here so that those things don't get lost, because so many of those bands, when they went away, they maybe they don't, they're gone forever. Like I said before, the streaming services don't have a lot of this stuff. And some of these bands have been smart enough over the years to be okay, yeah, I'm going to go back and grab some stuff that we recorded how many years ago and throw it up on Spotify and maybe make a few cents off this stuff,
Right.
By the time you get paid, it's what, everybody in the band gets $1, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's so important to have some kind of digital archive out there, because even stuff that I listened to when I was in college, I searched for it and couldn't find it. I'm oh man, thankfully I still have that CD, because otherwise this is gone and I don't know how to get in contact with any of those guys anymore. So who knows where that music went or if anybody still has it or whatever. So unless somebody happens to put it on something somewhere, a fan maybe puts it on YouTube or whatever, it could be gone forever. So I'd love to start a physical archive where we could, what your vinyls, your CDs, whatever, your cassettes, I guess.
Right.
Whatever. I
Whatever
would
you
love,
have.
yeah, I would love to have those. So yeah, that's a plan down the road too. And like special guest has a really cool stage upstairs where they can like stream bands and stuff. So I would
I
love
saw
to
that.
get.
I was wondering if that was like the capability up there. 'Cause that would
Yeah.
be so cool.
So yeah,
So
I'm
cool.
hoping at some point we'll get to do like, I know a lot of people have done their own versions of like sessions and stuff,
Yeah.
local sessions and stuff. So maybe we'll be able to do something like that someday up there and get some local bands in and do some streaming stuff and some stuff for YouTube and that sort of thing. But yeah, that's definitely down the road.
Awesome. I think that was the last of the questions.
Is there anything in the
Anything
comments that was
from
worth
the producers?
anything else that maybe we didn't cover this time or last time that
There's not really that much that you guys didn't answer. One of the ones I saw here, Gus the Savage asked, what do you think needs to happen in order to bring more shows and more light to the hip hop and R&B scene in NEPA?
Well, not to get super deep on the last question as we're heading out, but I want to be answer everything honestly. The toughest thing is like we live in a predominantly white area, and they're still getting used to the diversity around here and those numbers changing, and that's obviously a national problem, but it's a local problem too. It's pretty obvious. You go to the WNEP comments and you see like and granted they do not represent the whole area. They think they do. There's the fucking minority of racist piece of shit who like just think that they speak for the rest of us, and they fucking don't. Because your average person around here is just not like that. I'm sorry, they're not.
We didn't grow up that way, a lot of us.
No, I certainly didn't, for sure. But I think that there's that barrier to overcome, where there's the hip hop and rap, and that's trouble. So I think there's venues that don't know how to book that stuff yet, and they're afraid to bring it in. Like, oh no, that's going to get a certain crowd. Well, what do you mean by that? Well, I don't know about. They don't want to tell. They don't want to say it.
You
but
can
like
tell by the jukebox selection if you log into their AMI or their
yeah,
and you like the music that like you would play to like create a vibe or some energy in a space. Like if that is specifically blocked. It's 2022. If that media is blocked
right
in any given place, they're saying we don't want that crowd, and they're being so aggressively abhorrent to like fresh and new business
sure
that it's insulting. And I think
Yeah.
also it's important to get out there and do it and like get the content as much as you can, especially if you're passionate about it right now and you're capable now, because why would you wait any longer than tomorrow than to go out and like participate in an open mic or try to sponsor your own show? What places allow you to play that kind of music on the jukebox? Like, there's your target demographic. Like, start there and build that following. Because, like, the other person that had asked about journalism, right? It's about getting the experience and understanding how to figuratively read a room of like a cultural kind of enclave that this
absolutely
area is, right?
And the thing is too is there's a lot of there's a lot of hip hop fans, there's a lot of rap fans that listen to the national stuff and just do not like, and I've seen that even at the open mic where people, they put on the jukebox rap and stuff all the time. Like, Jesus, half the time I'm in there, it's either like heavy metal stuff or like rap and hip hop stuff. And so people are listening to it. And then when the rapper actually gets on stage, they've tuned him out and they're having a drink and they're not fucking paying attention. It's like,
on some other shit.
Yeah, like why wouldn't you support a local artist that is doing this stuff? Why wouldn't you want that? Why wouldn't you want to support that? Because it's clear you listen to it. It's clear you're a fan of that sort of thing. Maybe give the local guy a shot. And, I think that happens with all genres, to be fair. There's people who listen to the same, 20 rock songs that are on the radio over and over again, but they won't listen to the really cool rock band that's right there because they got to pay a $5 cover or, like they have to turn away from their drink for 5 fucking minutes, like so that all musicians of all genres kind of reach that part. But I'm hoping that more venues will open up to the idea of doing more hip hop shows. And obviously there's some good mix shows that kind of mix them in there. And I think then those people are exposed to something new and they gain an appreciation for it. So that helps too. So maybe we need more of the local rock acts, whether it's hard rock or metal or whatever, punk, to embrace those hip hop acts and say, hey, come on my show, do a half hour set, do a 20-minute set, whatever, and see if my audience is your audience too, and you like some of this stuff. Because people now will they don't see genres the way we used to. Like growing up in high school, it was very much, oh, you're a rock kid, you're a metal kid, right. you're a punk kid or whatever. And now it's like the kids growing up now don't even pay attention to that stuff. They will listen to some hip hop act, and then right after that something like super screaming, Cookie Monster vocal metal, and then like go from that to like chill hop or something just completely different, and not even think twice about it. So like maybe it's a generational thing, and it's going to break down as those older generations get older and they stop being in charge of things, and the younger people start being in charge of more things and booking these shows and being part of these venues and things like that. So I think maybe that's the key. So like it's tough right now. It's tough to say like I want it to change right now, but it maybe is going to take a little longer. And that sucks. But yeah, people are getting more used to the idea, and I think that stuff is starting to break out more. But you guys, I think the important thing too is like the hip hop acts and the rappers and stuff need to stick together. There's one thing, even just locally, I've noticed a lot of them like to feud with each other. I know that's part of the music is like, I'm the best, I'm the greatest, I'm the this and that. And that kind of adds to like, okay, well then we both can't be the best. Right. So I'm obvious, so now we're gonna fight about it or whatever. Sort that out and figure that out and be like, yeah, you know what? We're all on the same level. We're all trying to do the same thing. We all have the same hopes and dreams and whatever. Like, let's get together. Like, let's unify. Like maybe that's part of it too, is all those people need to get together and be like, yeah, how can we put more shows together? How can we take over maybe certain venues and make it ours and that sort of thing,
or make it more inclusive. It's important.
Absolutely,
to put it in a simple way. Be the change that you want to see in the areas that you're performing and acting in, and
sure,
for sure, don't disrespect those places. You're coming with like a feud or a beef to a place.
Yeah,
not a one business owner wants to see their business mentioned on the LSOR page. They want to see
right.
They in spirit want to see it promoted on any PA scenes page and the people that support that environment. So again, you want to talk about like the community. It is supportive until you come and act like a dick, and then you're not going to be allowed. You're not going to be wanted, and you're not going to be welcome to be a part of it.
Yeah, like there's a part of, just like all genres of music have a theatricality to it. So like, there is, the metal guy is going to be like, yeah, fuck everything up. But he doesn't really mean fuck everything. He doesn't mean destroy the venue and kill each other. It's just, it's part of the whole show. In the same way that like, I'm a gangster, I'm tough, I'll kill anybody that gets in my way. Don't actually, no.
Your fucking living room.
Yeah, we don't want actual violence and stuff like that. We don't want people, outside shooting at each other. We want like they make that just, it's part of the music. It's part of the theatricality of it. It's part of it's part of the freedom of expression, the whole nine yards. So like, don't be, you guys don't be feuding with each other. I think everybody needs to just get together and we're all on the same side. We all want the same things. Let's see, some good come out of that. So like, I'm hoping that, there's great venues opening up, like, the Keystone Stage and Elephant.
Yeah.
They've been
big things.
Yeah, they're doing like all ages shows and
all ages shows. If you have the means, do all ages shows. That's where
everybody
that's where these kids need to follows the DPAC right now, right? Like all ages shows, sessions. Like there were places for us to go. And if you really want to grow that target demographic or that audience, or you really want to tap into the younger kids because they got shit to do and they're going to be your biggest supporters.
For sure. Yeah. So hopefully, yeah, exactly. Try to gain that young audience, pull them in, and then they're going to be taken over in a few years. So like that's the time. Those are the people. The venues are going to overall too. They're going to go where the money is. So like if you're bringing people to shows and you have a following and an audience, they're going to be like, you know what? I don't care what the hell genre you play, as long as you're bringing people here. Great, like let's do it. And you have thankfully you have some open-minded people that are already booking this stuff. There's a hip hop show at the V Spot next week. Like
and bartending for that show.
Oh, that's awesome.
It is Mercy Gang.
Mercy Gang, yeah.
To go and be a part, because another band that's been here for years and years. Some great dear friends of mine for years and years have been a part of it, and it's just again, like, you wouldn't even know about them unless you were in one of these places or you caught one of their CDs, because not big and out there, and our area breeds that.
So I'm hoping to now that we're getting the podcast going again and that kind of stuff, we'll bring some of the more of those acts in. And I do feel like representation is so important, in the sense that like I'm just another boring dorky white guy in a sea of boring dorky white guys. I want to hear what you guys have to say. I want to hear your stories, your issues with the area, your triumphs in the area. Like, I want to hear all that kind of stuff. So like, I've had Gus on the show before. I've had Mercy Gang on the show before, but obviously I'll have all those guys on again at some point, and hopefully many more. I want to tell your stories, and I want to hear your other perspectives and stuff. Like, it's not about me. Like, this stuff has been, this AMA stuff has been a lot of fun, and I appreciate you guys tuning in for it and your guys' curiosity about it. But that's going to be kind of the end, that part of it for me. Like, when we do these interviews and the podcasts and stuff, you're going to see more. The format is more about the artists. It's very little about me and my opinions and stuff. I'm going to try to write the best questions that I can to get the best answers that I can. But I want to hear what you guys have to say. I want to hear your stories. So, I definitely will try and actively cover more hip hop stuff. And I confess that it's not my genre. I don't really listen to it much outside of like Rage Against the Machine and that kind of thing. Like, I'm just not a huge rap guy, but I respect it. I respect it so much. And I do listen to the local guys. I've, heard the albums and stuff. It's not that I don't listen to it in that sense. It's just not like my favorite thing outside of my usual, like, if I'm putting on my playlist, so to speak, it's like the stuff that I grew up with, so that's just me being true to myself. And but I want to hear more of this stuff. I want to know what it's like and stuff. And a lot of the guys who come to the open mic are really impressive too, and I'd love to hear more from them. So hopefully we will in the future. So
here we are at the end of the final hour of the second AMA with Rich House.
Yes.
we just had a surprise visitor. Didn't quite come in like Grandpa Bat as I thought. Am I allowed to say who walked into the room? I don't know.
Yeah, why not?
We're gonna break the
Absolutely.
Josh Balls just walked into the room.
Is this for me?
Yeah, and he's getting mic'd up as we speak.
Oh, I'll come hang out with you
gonna
guys.
come hang out with us
Yeah,
for a few minutes? Yeah. All right.
Here, I'll come sit right here.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll see me. Let me tap over. Let's.
Yeah.
Will this work?
I don't want to.
John, come on.
I don't think. Can we see you back?
Yeah, I've been watching you guys the entire time. I've been
nervous. I didn't expect this.
I've been upstairs. Is it okay that I crash your thing?
Yes, thank you. Hello.
You okay?
I've on his way more successful, way more watch podcasts than anything down
I was
here.
upstairs streaming, and I was like, I had all my screens open, and I was watching you guys I was like, when bands were playing, I would mute my stream. When I wouldn't mute, I would still listen. But then I'd turn your guys' up. And it was nice.
Oh,
I was
cool.
like, how have you been?
Yeah,
I love this. I was like enjoying while I was like, this is nice. Some good questions. I liked seeing, if you guys didn't see it, but like the answers scroll across. I mean, the questions scroll across the bottom of the screen, which was really nice. So like when I couldn't
Thank you, John.
hear,
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate
Yeah.
that.
It was good. I mean, what a cool. I love that you guys are downstairs.
Yeah,
I'm right upstairs.
We're
This
gonna
is
be
nice.
here all the time now.
I'm gonna crash your shit all the time.
Awesome. Yes.
This is gonna be fun. I'm just gonna come in and bother. I'll be naked in one. I'll have
sweet.
maybe I'll
yes.
bring food one time. You
Okay.
know what I mean? Maybe I'll just surprise you guys with nice fun things. Random.
appreciate
Easter
that.
eggs.
Yeah. Oh. I do. I will hide things. I actually I got a bunch of little vinyl stickers made that I've hid all over the 4th floor because I was bored earlier.
Okay.
So that's fun. So welcome to the office. You know,
Thank you.
welcome to the accelerator, where I'm just gonna torture everybody. But
Spirit.
yeah, I didn't know I was gonna be sitting right here. This is nice.
Yeah, this is cool.
You guys are wrapping up though, aren't you?
We were wrapping up.
Yeah, but that's okay. That's fine. I mean, John's still here. I think our other producer's like, I'm the fuck.
Will you have me as a guest sometime?
I would love for you to come because we did have you many years ago when we were at the Cole Creative Building.
So long ago.
So yeah, that was way too long ago.
There's a lot to
so
catch up on.
Definitely a lot to catch
Yeah.
up on. So yeah, I would love to.
And John's always awesome. You remember what was it? The Office?
We did the Office pop. Yeah. I did
One
the
of-
Office 5, dude, to close it out, I did the Office 5K this weekend. It was a lot of
Really?
fun. Yeah.
John is one of the best hosts of an event that I've ever seen. It was
That's why I wanted him to
Yeah.
do this because
Yeah.
I'm like this. He's such a good MC.
yeah.
Thanks, guys.
He held the room. Everybody was great. Everybody was happy. It got me to. I was able to like leave and like